Hello, good afternoon. I am your host, Kate Silverton, and I'm delighted to welcome you to the second day of the Evening Standard's mental health series, London Minds, in partnership with Movember. Now, as you probably know by now, the London Minds event series are designed to help with our mental health. We'll be hearing from a host of iconic speakers and mental health experts who will inspire us to make those easy changes, those small steps that we need to make to feel better, whether it's through improved sleep, mindfulness, nutrition and exercise. If you are feeling stressed and finding it hard to cope at the moment, you really are not alone. Experts are calling it pandemic fatigue, and the past 12 months, I think it's fair to say, have taken their toll on everyone. Mental health then is high on the Evening Standard agenda. London Minds will explore and tackle the pressures felt by all of us, whether at home or at work, and through those free to attend, encouraging and interactive events. Today's session will focus on achievable changes to exercise and nutrition to help build and maintain positive mental health and well-being. So today, we'll hear from nutrition and exercise specialists Alice Living, personal trainer, blogger and best-selling author, Dr. Rupy Aujila, a straight-talking NHS doctor sharing his unbiased opinion on healthy eating, Adrienne Herbert, author of Power Hour, How to Focus on Your Goals and Create a Life You Love, and Dr. Hazel Wallace, who's the founder of The Food Medic, an NHS medical doctor, registered nutritionist and best-selling author. Also, you can join today's after-hour sessions at 5:30 for a non-alcoholic cocktail masterclass from Seedlip's brand ambassador Ed Procter and a classic frame rave. The series then is supported by headline partner Movember, the leading global men's health charity, bringing you Movember Conversations. It's a new digital tool to give you the confidence to have the conversations with the men in your life who might be struggling. Movember Conversations shows you how to start a conversation, to be a good listener, what I call being an active listener, and create a setting of trust and openness. It focuses on those scenarios so relevant to many of us right now: job losses, social isolation, and inevitable family pressures. You can see movember.com/conversations. We're also partnering with a charity, Shout 85258, which is a free, confidential, anonymous tech support service. So if you are struggling to cope, if you feel the need to talk, there are trained Shout volunteers who are here for you day or night. So let's thank then our partners for supporting Londoners to develop better mental health and well-being. First up, I'd like to introduce Dr. Rupy Aujila, an NHS GP working in emergency medicine and founder of the social sensation, The Doctor's Kitchen. So Dr. Rupy, let's start, if you will, by explaining what is the gut?
The gut, it's a great question to start off with. So the gut can be physically described as the start of your digestive system all the way from your mouth to the anus. And along that process is the mechanism by which we chew, digest, and break down nutrients into particles in which we absorb at various parts of that digestive tract and get converted into whether it be neurotransmitters, whether it be transported around different organs around the body for the process of aerobic and anaerobic respiration and metabolism. So the gut is basically that huge long tube that starts at the mouth and ends at the anus.
And why is it so important in terms of mental health? What's the link?
So the main link with mental health is to do with the gut microbiota, which is the population of microbes that are largely bacteria, but also include viruses, nematodes, fungi, and live all around the body, but are largely concentrated in the colon or the large intestine, which is the latter part of your digestive tract. And this population, if you look at the number of cells or even the genetic material, it is upwards of 10 to even 100 times the amount of material that are in our human cells and the genetic information that we have as well. So it's a fascinating area of research that has huge ramifications across a number of different specialties, but including mental health as well, because we understand the impact on inflammation, on neurotransmitter creation and how that has direct and indirect effects on our brain, as well as the production of hormones as well that have similar effects. So it's a vitally important discussion, and it's something that has become quite fashionable to talk about these days, but we're very much in our infancy when it comes to how this actually has a demonstrable impact on mental health.
And vital for our immune system as well, how well we fight off viruses and disease?
Yes, absolutely. So if you think about the impact of immune cells, so why don't we first decide, why don't we first talk about what we mean by our immune system? I think a lot of people think of our immune system as just the sort of military defense force, which is there to fight off pathogens and viruses and bacteria. And obviously that's a huge impact because that's how we've evolved to get to the point where we are now in evolution. But it's also there almost like a peacekeeping role. So our immune system detects dysfunctioning cells that need to be cleared away. It also detects cells that have been around for a long period of time and have become senescent or old and dysfunctioning and inflammation producing, and again also need to be cleared. So it's got as much of a peacekeeping role as it does a military sort of defense force role. How that relates to mental health in that is inflammation, which is the process by which we fight off diseases, can actually have ramifications on our brain health. So it crosses something called the blood-brain barrier, which can have an impact on your brain in a process called neuroinflammation. And that has been demonstrated to have some impacts on how we perceive and anxiety levels and how we maintain stable mood as well. So our immune cell, and this comes back to the gut as well, our immune cells are largely concentrated in our gut because that is the window by which we have a communication with the direct outside world. And any distinct or perturbations to that population can have issues with inflammation on the brain too.
So when we use that expression, that gut feeling, there is such a thing.
It's a really interesting, yeah, exactly. Our vernacular kind of gives us some insight into actually what's going on in our body. It's also almost quite intuitive for us. So when you have a gut feeling or you have trouble that sort of manifests itself as even a physical symptom as well, like a bloating or a cramping sensation when you're about to go into an exam or do an interview or something like that. This is literally your body in action. And it speaks to the gut-brain axis. So it's the bi-directional highway by which your brain speaks to your gut and vice versa. And so people who tend to have anyone who suffer with anxiety or nerves or has an established medical issue can speak to the fact that they get gut symptoms, they get diarrhea, they get bloating, they get constipation, a whole range of different issues to do with the gut, if it's as it relates to the mental health problem, and vice versa as well. If you have gut problems or you have gut permeability, for example, by what you're eating, that can have ramifications on your mental well-being too.
So really interesting, really sort of important for us to pay attention to what our body is telling us. And when we understand that that goes, as you say, from the mouth down to the anus, when we think of things like irritable bowel syndrome, these are not all just labels. Actually, maybe we should be looking at them and thinking, this is my body telling me something. And for the same way for parents, and I throw this in because a lot of the time children will talk about having a tummy ache before going to school, and very often it'll get dismissed as a physical thing, but perhaps we need to start, and I wonder what your thoughts are, we need to start listening to what our body is actually telling us. And as you say, when we think of the gut and how important it is, there's a lot of messages that are going on there. Yeah,
it has a lot of impact, I think, across a whole range of different issues, and particularly, as you say, with kids. I still work in A&E and I do pediatric A&E as well, and the number of parents I see with children who have what we deem abdominal migraines or pains because of issues at school or issues even with the family relationships. Obviously, in an A&E environment, my primary concern is to make sure we're getting rid of any red flag symptoms, and we're making sure that there isn't an acute issue with the abdomen. But often I dive into issues to do with family relationships, what's going on at school. Is there an element of bullying? Is there stuff going online? All exams, all these different things. And you'd be really surprised at how many times that presentation to either A&E or even GP as well actually has its roots in anxiety, in issues going on beyond physical problems. So it's definitely something that I see as a clinician, and also something that speaks to the wider food environment, I think, as well. And I'm sure you would attest to this. Our food environment has rapidly changed over the last few decades, and that has led to the increase in a number of issues that we see, including allergies, but also autoimmune conditions, sensitivity to certain foods, as well as obesity as well.
So let's get into that then. I just want to sort of sum up, if I can, with my little tired brain, being a mummy
Sure.
on full flow at the moment. But just one is that my gut is not just something that sits in the center of my body. It goes from my mouth down to my bottom. Mm-hmm. Two is that I really need to pay attention because it's picking up not just on what's going into, but it's also there's a response, is what I'm hearing from you, in terms of what's going on in the outside world. So if something's making me anxious, it can manifest in my gut in some way. It might be with irritable bowel, it might be tummy ache, as you've just said, and migraine, a sort of, what did you, stomach migraine.
Abdominal migraine, yeah.
So abdominal, thank you. So really important for us to really pay attention. So if anyone's watching saying, well, hang on, that might be me, they might have dismissed it. They might be thinking actually it's something awful perhaps, but actually it might just be their body's way of saying you've got anxiety, we want to address it. So let's get on to that. But the third element of this that obviously people will be really keen to hear is, so what should we be putting into our bodies to facilitate the well-being of this phenomenal and very important gut?
Yeah, I think from the perspective of what you should be eating to nurture your gut, it's very similar to how you should be eating to support your heart, your brain, your skin, your immune system. It all comes down to these simple principles: plant-focused, whole foods, lots of fiber, color, which is basically variety, and also eating in time, which we can talk about in terms of when you eat as well as what you eat. So plant-focused basically means you're going to be having 80 to 85% of what you eat as plants. When you eat more plants, you're generally eating a lot more fiber, and fiber is critical to nurturing this population of microbes that live in our colon and do incredible health benefits to us. The other thing when you're eating whole is that you're eating the whole plant. So for example, instead of eating white rice, you want to be eating brown rice because you've got the fibrous husks, and you've also got the B vitamins that we otherwise polish and strip off when we have white rice alone. And the same thing can be said of the skins on our parsnips or even potatoes, because we don't want to lose that element of fiber. Everything has an impact on nurturing your microbes. When you eat colorfully, you're eating vitamins and minerals, but also those polyphenols, those plant chemicals that again have impacts on inflammation and also nourish your microbes too. And the variety is basically exactly what your microbes need. So I like to use the analogy of your microbes being bored children. They thrive on interesting and new bits of information all the time. So if you're varying up your diet on a weekly basis or at least a monthly basis, you're giving your microbes a chance to diversify and improve that population. And eating in time is basically giving your gut a rest. And it's something that in our increasing globalizing civilization, we're not really giving ourselves a chance to have a break. We constantly have the ability to snack or to go out and eat and stuff. And we've extended that time window by which we do eat beyond 12 hours, which unfortunately is having an impact as well on insulin levels, glucose, and ultimately on obesity as well. So when I think about what you should be eating for your gut, you should really be thinking about fiber, whole foods, lots of plants, variety and color, and eating in time.
Okay, so I hear you, and that all sounds amazing, right? I see you, and you're this really handsome, beautiful, very healthy-looking doctor, and my heart is slightly sinking. Because when I spoke to you before we came on, I said, what did you eat this morning, just to get a sound check? And you were like, oh, well, I fasted until 10, and then I had my eggs on something exotic. And I'm like, oh my God, I need this man in my life. Can you come and live with me, first and foremost, to cook for me and help? Because, okay, I can be really amazing on my food. I can do bone broth, right? I can do my bone broth for 12 hours and all the rest of it. And then I can be cooking with my kids, as I did on Sunday. I make a Victoria sponge and I'm taking it from a recipe online. It's got stack loads of sugar. I feel sick for the rest of the day because I can't just eat one slice. I have to have about 4 because that's just me. And it's this element of, I know, I can only speak for myself. Let's do that. But I know I don't live in balance when it comes to food. I know what I should be eating. But sometimes it's really quite hard and there's so much fast food available. I don't have much time. I'm a busy mom. What can we do to not feel dispirited that I know that eating Victoria sponge, like the only thing I ate on Sunday pretty much was that sort of a bag of sugar. And I know that's not good for me, but it's quite hard unless you're living this consistently to find that balance. So for people like me and a lot of people watching, dare I say, what is the sort of, where can we start? Where are the small steps? What can we do to begin this journey to get ourselves into balance now that we know we are nurturing not just our bodies, but our minds as well?
Yeah, I think first of all, it's really important to be compassionate with ourselves, because what I've described is sort of like what we know according to the evidence base, that is the sort of quote unquote perfect way of eating and what we should really aspire to get toward. But obviously, a whole bunch of other factors come into play: accessibility, affordability of food, your food environment where you live. These all have huge impacts on your ability to attain any sort of diet, let alone a healthy one. And so the way I try and describe it to patients in clinic or even, in the nonprofit that I started, where we teach medical students how to cook as well as the foundations of nutrition, is just one more and just one step at a time. So one of the key elements I try and get to people is like, look, if you're having a takeaway on a Friday and you want to try and amp up the health benefits, just add one more portion of fruit, vegetables, nuts, or seeds at every mealtime. And that can be as simple as adding some chickpeas to the curry that you're making, or having a side salad of broccoli when you get your takeaway pizza. And it can be as simple as that. And I know people might snuff at that and be like, well, that's not going to do anything. Your diet isn't going to be a huge change if you just change a few ingredients like once a week. It's going to be those consistent cumulative impacts of your diet over time. So just by increasing one portion of fruit and vegetable, even if it's once a day, you're actually moving yourself towards that Mediterranean diet score, which has been demonstrated to have improvements in cardiovascular disease, stroke, cancer, and mental health as well. So there's small improvements. So be really compassionate with yourself, start very small, and create a habit that you think is sustainable for yourself. And just to make you feel a little bit better, Kate, I regularly post on my socials things that I do eat myself as well. So I was in A&E at the weekend and I posted a picture of Haribo, the sweets that everyone knows about, because when I'm at work, there's nothing that's going to be able to stop me from snacking on those like high sugar items, even though it's not good for me. It's just how we are. It's how we've evolved to be like those sugar seeking beings. So we have to be compassionate with ourselves too.
That's a really nice message, and thank you for sharing that, because it is good to hear that there should be balance. As a final thought then, in terms of the upsides of this, if we can all start moving in the right direction, what are the upsides then for our psychological, mental well-being?
Yeah, I think there's a whole bunch of ways in which to frame mental well-being. So I think if you look across different foundations, diet is definitely one of them that we've been talking about now. So upping your content of greens, quality fats like nuts and seeds, fiber, and getting more plants in your diet is absolutely critical. But also looking at the other determinants of good mental health: social cohesion, connection, purpose, as well as making sure that you're moving and you have those conversations with your general practitioner or your whoever your practitioner is regularly if you are struggling as well. And reaching out, I think, is something that a lot of people struggle to do because of embarrassment. And I think again, to your point, and I know it was in jest, but I think it's a really important point, being compassionate with ourselves, because this isn't something that you can quickly magic away with a better diet or even a pharmaceutical. It takes time, and you really have to invest in it. And so trying to dip your toe into all these different foundations of what could be good for mental well-being, I think is a really, really good place to start.
Wonderful. So nice. And can you please come and cook in my kitchen with me?
Of course.
So nice to see you. And we can all follow you as well. I know the details are going to be online, but you talk just beautifully well, and we're all in. Thank you so much. Really good to see you.
My pleasure, Kate. You too.